Hi, amazing humans, and welcome to this week's episode of the Marina Perry Podcast. I am your host, Marina Perry, and I am welcoming to the episode this week the amazing Rachael Marie, who is the founder of Thrive Natural Therapies. She has been a guest on the show before. She is a naturopath, and the last time she was on, we unpacked all things adrenal fatigue, stress responses. So if you haven't checked out that episode, you need to go and do it. But today, we are diving deep into all things women's cycles, celebrating the cycle, understanding the cycle, and particularly we want to focus on natural contraceptive solutions so that you can actually create a natural cycle for yourself. So I'm not going to take the normal approach that I would with my podcast where I ask about, how did you get to be and all the things with Rach, because she shared that with us before. What I'm excited for us to do is to just dive straight in. Are you good with that, Rach?
Yeah, 100%.
So firstly though, thank you so much for joining us on the show. And what I would love for you to just start with is, why are you so passionate about helping women understand their cycle in the first place? Like, why is this an issue? Why do we even need someone to, if you're a woman and you've reached puberty and you started having a period, don't we already know all this stuff? Like, why do we need you to tell us? I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek because
I think we've missed, having your period for most of us, including myself when only years ago, that it was so inconvenient. And I didn't realize just how powerful my body is. Like a woman's body, we create life, we give life. And when we start to learn about our menstrual cycle, we can actually see how powerful it is. Newest research has now shown that your menstrual cycle, for doctors, it is like a vital sign for women. Vital signs are things like your temperature, your heartbeat, your breath, and your menstrual cycle is now included. It's the sixth vital sign in the body. So to understand this, and not just understand it, but start to utilize the power of your menstrual cycle, it can enhance not only, your hormones, but it can enhance your love life, it can enhance your career, your friendships. Everything is enhanced when you start to embrace this incredible cycle, which is your menstrual cycle.
Yeah, this natural rhythm. I agree with you, Rach. I certainly, for the majority of my, female life, was completely clueless that there was something magical about this natural rhythm. And in fact, I put my hand up that I kind of did a lot of things incorrectly and was on the contraceptive pill for the vast majority of, my ovulating lifespan, really, which I regret heavily. And I know as a mother of two girls, I chose to do the very cliched period party when, one of my daughters started to menstruate. And I think that it's important because and there was red velvet cake and all the things, but it was like, wow, you've reached a really amazing part of womanhood, and let's go celebrate this. And we got her all the things she needed so that she was confident, and we sat down and we went through the questions, and then we had a party that night. And I think we are becoming more aware that there is power in this potent womb cycle, but I would love for you to unpack that. So what do you think women are missing? What is this cycle that we talk about? I know that lots of people might go, oh, there's a loop, we understand the phases on a anatomical level, but I think sometimes we miss it on a chemical or hormone level, and therefore an energetic and opportunity based level. And I know you teach this really well. We've gone through this inside some of my other programs before. So please, I'm going to throw to you and you have the floor. Share your wisdom.
Should we dive into what the cycle is?
Yeah, let's do it.
So with the menstrual cycle, firstly, women are so deeply connected with the moon cycles. So every moon cycle is about 28 days. And it's been said that a woman's menstrual cycle is every 28 days. So day one of the menstrual cycle is the first day that there's bleeding. So it's your first day of your period. And then, it leads in towards, after having a period, into ovulation, into your luteal phase where you're building the uterine lining. And then you realize that, oh, I'm not pregnant. And then you shed the uterine lining, and you just go on. And there's different cycles that are happening with the brain communicating to the ovaries. So a woman's cycle is something like this. And then a man's cycle, if you looked at it, it's like this. Just one testosterone. So
there's not a cycle. There's a line.
It's just linear. Yeah, they're just very linear. So I guess the first, what we wanted to sort of help realize about the cycle is that if we can use the cycles of summer, autumn, winter, spring, can really help us to go, oh, okay, I get that now once we understand.
I love that. Yep, let's do it.
So we'll talk about the first day one of your menstrual cycle, the first day of your bleed. So this is the first day that you have your period, and you're bleeding, you know, and you're releasing. And emotionally, inside chemically, you're actually releasing the fact that you're not pregnant. You're releasing the fact that there's no fertilized egg. So that internally with your body is very profound when you begin to get into tune with, I've just built up all month to see if I get pregnant. And now I've realized I'm not, so we're releasing. So this is not the time to be going out and partying. It's actually time to really block out the world and start to just be okay, just be still. When I have my period, I'm really blessed that I get to prepare for my period. I've got my natural cycle. So I sort of, I have my days off when I have my period, or if I have to see patients, I make sure that they're very, very, you know, minimum. I'm not working a full day. In Brisbane, we used to get Uber Eats because I was like, I'm tapping out. I'm not cooking. I'm just going to be in my room watching YouTubes and things like that. But this is a time where it's winter time. You know, this is the time that you're releasing, you're hibernating, and you're having a period. And you can have, you know, clotty, heavy periods. You can be going through a really hard time, particularly if you're wanting to get pregnant and you're realizing, you know, again with miscarriage, not getting pregnant. So it's a time to go within. And I feel like this used to be my worst time of the month when I had my period. And now it's actually my favorite time of the month because I tap out. I'm like, I'm not seeing anyone. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to open up space to bleed because I'm a woman and I'm bleeding. And I think that that's quite exciting for me because I can't wait for my next period because I get to just be still and journal a lot more as well.
That really changes the kind of the perspective of it as opposed to an inconvenience. It's almost like, look at this beautiful, you know, introspective, wonderful world I get to be in for a few days. That's lovely. I love that, Rach. That's really awesome.
Really is.
And so how does winter last? Like, what's the time frame out of that 28 days?
It can last from 2 days for a woman, or some women can bleed up to 7 days. So it really just depends on what your cycle's doing. On average, a girl will usually bleed between 3 to 5 days. And then that's the sort of winter time. The day you stop bleeding is more of your winter, spring. So springtime, this is when your hormones are still at its lowest. But then estrogen comes into the body, and estrogen's role is to make you quite feminine. So estrogen is a hormone that builds things. So it builds bone. So, you know, when we become older, we lose estrogen, and then everyone's freaking out about bone health because we don't have the messenger to build bone. So estrogen builds bone, it builds healthy breast tissue. Its main role in the menstrual cycle is to build the uterine lining. So it builds the blood in the uterine lining, preparing your body to have a fertilized egg. So that's its main role. And during this time, you're going to be feeling a lot more energy. You're going to feel renewed. Your estrogen will help you to build muscle. So this is the time where you get back into the gyms or back into a health club and start doing more sculpt classes, looking at building muscle. And also because you've got this feeling of renewal, you can also start to do a lot more social things, you know, call your girlfriends or start to do hikes and things like that, because you're going to feel more energized.
Coming out,
well. Yeah.
And when does progesterone start to get stimulated?
Progesterone gets stimulated after ovulation. So after the springtime.
Great, thanks. So that's later. So you're saying immediately after the period, we get estrogen stimulation, which is where we're getting the surge of creation again.
Yeah.
And so our strength gain returns, which I think is an important aspect for people who like to fitness train. That's where you're going to feel strong and capable. Definitely. And you're going to feel more social, you're saying, because you're going to be coming back out.
Yes. And career and work wise, you're going to have a lot more energy, and you're going to be wanting to start projects. You're going to want to, you know, maybe try a a new fitness class or something like that. Like you're going to have the energy back to start to do a lot more things, and honor that, because it's your go time. It's like start to get back into the world. After this time, it's summertime, and this is what every woman loves. Like she absolutely glows. So summertime inside in the body, your estrogen is at its peak. So they did a study and they took photographs of over 100 different women, and they got their faces when they were ovulating in summer, and then when they were having their period. And in summer, their whole face went symmetrical, and it went more softer because of the estrogen. So in theory, during this time, you are highly fertile because your egg is just about to release, and your vaginal secretion changes as well, and it can go really watery, and that's meant to help the sperm go up the fallopian tubes. So you could perhaps see it on your underwear for girls that are using natural fertility methods. But you're going to be feeling and looking good. So your communication skills are at its peak. So this is the time in business and your career to perhaps do things like your blogs, or do your photo shoots, to do videos, to...
Wow, that's so interesting, Rach. And it actually makes a lot of sense, because what you're saying is that's when you're trying to call in a mate, is around ovulation. So it's when you're going to be most physically attractive, most energetically attractive, most communicatively attractive. Imagine if people started scheduling, you know, all of those photo shoots that they might have to do. And that would be around, you're saying, day 14. So around after that, 7 days of winter, 7 days of spring, where they want to start new things and create. And then day 14, is it about 7 days? They've got this window of summer?
So around ovulation can go around three to 4 days, but you can have the lead up to it and the after effect around that ovulation. Obviously, it's spread much wider, particularly when you know that you're about to ovulate. Then this is where you can really utilize it, because girls can expand their summer when they start to listen to their body. Also, you know, ask for a pay rise at this time. I think it's really important for women who are wanting to step up and become leaders, and you know, ask for a pay rise. Like, now's the time to do it. Put in those important sales calls, do sales calls and you know, sales meetings and all those, you know, things to get your career really kick-started, because you're going to be looking good, feeling good. A lot of the girls go on dates as well at that particular time, because they're wanting to, I guess, you're looking great, so you feel more confident, and that's going to attract a better quality partner, so to say, because that you're showing up as the best version of yourself, which is really, really cool. Now, one thing that I have learned personally, and I help my girls that are doing, you know, fertility tracking and things like that, summertime, you're going to be feeling amazing. You're going to be saying, yes, I can do that. Yes, I want to do that. But you got to remember, your cup is full. Actually, it's overflowing with energy, and you're feeling really good. So now's not the time to go buy a puppy. Now is not the time to overcommit yourself, because you got to remember, hey, winter's coming up in a couple of weeks. And if I don't, you know, make sure that I honor that phase of my cycle, this is where I see a lot of girls burning out, because we commit to things like babysitting a friend's dog for, you know, 2 weeks. And when you're in winter time, you're like, why the hell did I say that I would do that? Because summertime, you feel really good. So that's summertime. That's like,
so just watch you don't become too yes in
that's
summer.
I think, and that's really important to recognize. And then after you ovulate, your progesterone then starts to surge and estrogen goes down. And progesterone's incredible. It's anti-anxiety. It helps you to burn fat as fuel. So this is a really good time to start back in your cardio, you know, HIIT style, cardio style, and really get into that fat burning zone, which is really good during this time, just after ovulation. But as you start to come in towards your winter time,
so into autumn,
so this is autumn time, you need to wheel it in. So this isn't time you may feel hot 1 minute, cold the next, just because that progesterone is starting to surge up and estrogen is really dropping down. So it's a time to really focus on inwards, starting to go back inwards, finishing off projects that you may have started. But you've got really good attention to detail during this time. So I like to do all my admin work. I like to do all of my, you know, invoicing work, finishing off blogs, editing, because you can sit down, you can really focus for quite a long time due to the progesterone in there. And be okay with saying no. These are things like when someone's saying, hey, let's go out for a girls' night out and then go to all these different events. It's okay to be, no, you know what, it's not working for me around this time of month, and starting to go inwards, because if we don't start to bring it in, we can overexhaust ourselves.
Yeah.
And I notice when I'm doing this is when my partner goes, you know, hey babe, what's for dinner? I'm like, make your own bloody dinner. Why do I have to do everything? Yeah. And it's something that I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit drained here. I've got to really start pulling things in. And that's autumn time. So when you start to realize how your hormones really work in this rhythm, then you can really start to enhance all aspects of your life.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And then with the PMS concept, you know, premenstrual, I don't know, stress syndrome, or premenstrual syndrome, whatever they call it, you know, basically when they say women become beasts. And I must admit, there have been times where I've had a shorter fuse than normal, or I'm a bit more emotional than normal. And, you know, 2 days later or 3 days later, I've got my period and I'm like, oh, you know, it does make sense. Yeah. But I'm wondering, in alignment with what you just shared, that's in autumn and it's time to finish off. What else is happening there that seems to make us just that little bit more emotional or reactive?
When you get progesterone, you're not as good at regulating your blood sugar levels. So therefore, you're going to be craving a lot more sugar. And you have a drop in serotonin. And now serotonin is really important for, you know, for good mood. And it also stops you from craving sugar. So it's just every woman that I talk to and about, you know, PMS, it's always craving sugar or never feeling satisfied. You could be eating everything and you're never satisfied. It's because of that reduction of serotonin in the body.
And it makes sense. I mean, serotonin is the happy hormone, right? So, you know, if we're reduced in our happy hormone, we're probably just going to feel a little sadder, right?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And I think by recognizing, okay, I'm going to be feeling a little bit empty, either shut away from the world so people don't see this side of you, or start to do things that actually make you feel good. And, you know, when we spoke about the nervous system, you mentioned some really good things like caressing your partner's hair, hugging the kids, and having a list of things that, okay, what do I need to do to make me feel good today? Because having a list around that time of month it's gold, because it just helps you to re-identify, yes, I'm in this type of, you know, time of my month, and what can I do? And it could mean do a yoga class over doing a sculpt class. It could mean going home a little bit earlier or going to bed a little bit earlier as well.
Well, that's what I was going to jump in and add to what you're saying there, is that I feel like even if you start to become in awareness of your cycle, and even knowing when you're a little agitated, because I think sometimes if we're disconnected to our cycle, we can be agitated and then we just literally label ourselves. I'm just a bitch today. Why am I such a aggro hag today? Whatever it is, story. But if we can go, gosh, I'm agitated today. Oh, my period's coming. You know, I am a woman that has hormones surging through her body. There's just that opportunity to extend compassion and kindness and understanding to what your body is moving through. Because what I loved about what you shared right at the top there, Rach, about, you know, and people who are not watching this on the YouTube, you know, when Rachael said a woman's cycle goes like this, and if you're watching the video right now, my hand is going up and down like a wave, and a man's cycle goes like this, and she just did a straight line across, which, you know, you're missing if you're not watching the video. But that is the very essence of the masculine and feminine. And I know masculine and feminine is a broader conversation than gender, and I say this more than anyone. Yet the truth of the matter is that our experience of masculine and feminine is tethered to our hormonal responses. So that chaos is kind of the very beauty of the fact that we're women. And if we can extend to ourselves a reverence for it as opposed to a judgment for it, then it's like we also can say to someone, hey, you know what, I'm really sorry I snapped. I just realized I'm a couple days out from my period, and I'm actually just being irrationally grouchy today. And then you probably start crying, you know, they'd be like, I'm really sorry. And then they'll just be like, oh, bless, you know, as opposed to like bottling that all up and whatever else. And that's the beauty of being a woman. We get to be the creator of life, and life is chaotic. Like, it is very much that magical mix of all the things.
Spot on.
So Rach, I mean, like I shared earlier, when I look back, and I don't regret anything because everything led to everything, yet I was put on the contraceptive pill very young for my skin, and because I had very heavy periods. And then I stayed on that thing when I became sexually active. It was convenient. And I stayed on it, and I stayed on it, and I stayed on it until I really was in a complete mess with all my health stuff, which I then had to sort before I wanted children because, as you know, I was polycystic ovary. I had no periods. My system was a complete disaster. I had testosterone through the roof. I just wasn't even being a woman. And then after children was really the first opportunity I had to explore my natural cycle. But a lot of people are resistant to, coming off the pill or the Marina. I call it the Marina, just so everyone is clear, because I refuse to call what do you call it? I think it's called the Marina, if we're all on the same page, but I will reference it as the Marina, or whatever form of contraceptive that you can have implanted, or oral contraceptive that you take. And I understand that fear because, lots of people don't want unwanted pregnancies, understand that. And that is a woman's right. And I did it too for those reasons. Yet now I wished I had had a mentor and a wise woman to guide me to understand, which is why I'm so passionate about the work that you do in this space, because it's so needed. But there are older women too who aren't getting taught this in their youth, and they've been on the contraceptive pill for so long that there's now this, well, is there any point in me coming off? What's going to happen? Will I gain weight? What if I fall pregnant? Like, blah, 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 a million questions. So let's unpack that for people. Firstly, why do we want to come off a synthetic or, something that's controlling our cycle? What's the benefit to coming off it?
I think it's really important to recognize that the pill or hormonal birth control, synthetic hormonal birth control, is relatively new in the scheme of things. It was only 50 years ago we actually had and approved by the FDA. It first came out in America that birth control was first given to married couples, and then it was given out in the Western world with very, very little research done about the safety of it. And since it's been out 50 years, we're getting it into a generation in their 80s that are now only just showing some side effects from it. These side effects are things like dementia, or having, younger kids with a lot of defects and higher estrogens in their bodies. And I think it's really important to know that it's not as safe as what we thought it was. And we have tried to bring out a contraception pill for males, but all of their side effects are things like depression, anxiety, and that's all the same things that women have, but they say no to it. So why are we still saying yes to having these oral contraceptions still coming in and affecting us? Some of the side effects is actually changing parts of your brain. The progestin that's found in the oral contraception pill is actually turning or switching your brain chemistry to make you more reactive to stress instead of proactive to stress. They did a huge study with over 1 million women over in the Netherlands, and it's linked to depression. So you're more likely to get depressed if you are on the contraceptive pill. Get this is something that blew my mind, because I think we're only just touching the base with this particular one. For a man and a woman to come together, they use attraction, and some of that attraction is called the histocompatibility gene. So a woman's going to seek a man with opposite genes because it helps with the offspring to have better immunity and a better chance for survival.
More diversity.
Yes, yeah. So when a woman's pregnant, when a woman's on the pill, she actually seeks a man with the same histocompatibility genes. The theory is that when you're on the pill, you mimic being pregnant. So instead of seeking a, very masculine type of man, you're seeking a nurturing role. And you're then meeting up with a guy with the same genes and then reproducing children. Now, the only research that has come out is that women matched with the same guy are more likely to have affairs and cheat because they're sexually unsatisfied. But what about their next generation? We haven't even looked at that particular offspring or done any research into that. And I truly believe that's some of the biggest reasons why we have so many autoimmune conditions. We have heaps of allergies because remember, you need opposite genes to match to have a good immune system. So what about all these gazillion, you can't even bring peanuts and cashews and honey and eggs or any of that to schools because of all these kids have these weird allergies.
I just want to pause you, Rach, because I'm sitting here, my mind is spinning. That study that you just mentioned is huge. That's huge information. And, you know, as someone who studies, you know, attraction and like wound relationships and all of that on a straight up physiological level, and I mean, we know that attraction is pheromone based, right? So what you're saying makes perfect sense, that if my natural pheromones are masked by a synthetic mask, in the same way that if we take the metaphor of people putting a fake facade of themselves into the world and then finding a match for that fake facade, it just I mean, literally you've blown my mind with this study. I'd love to read the papers on that because I hadn't heard about that. I mean, I knew about pheromone matching and I knew about the need for biodiversity, and that's how we prosper as a race. But what you're saying there is actually massive, and it makes sense because when we're in our deep feminine essence, we do attract a deep masculine essence. And, you know, so many of the women I work with are in relationships with men who aren't embodied in their masculine, and the women are embodied in the masculine instead, right? So this is and these are women that probably were on contraceptive pills, because who hasn't been on the contraceptive pill in the last 20 years if you're of a certain age? That's just, I mean, really so massive, so massive.
And I know sometimes it's really hard for me to approach my friends that have kids and aren't with their kids' aren't with their children's father anymore, because I always go, were you on the pill when you met your partner or your ex-partner? And that, like, honestly, around 80% of them were, yes, I was on the pill. And then I'd sort of tweak that a little bit more, like, when you got off the pill, when you had kids, you know, they would go into this, I just didn't feel the same. And then they start to get into like, oh, it's my fault that I don't feel the same. You know, maybe I'm not a good mom. Maybe I'm overwhelmed with the stress. And I'm like, maybe you just weren't meant to match with him. Maybe now that your natural hormones are finally kicking in, you look at your partner from a different angle, a different perception, because you're not meant to match with them.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's a kind of a big assumptive hypothesis to jump to. And so for anyone listening, please don't go assuming that because you're on the contraceptive pill when you met your partner that you've mismatched and you're not destined. But what I think is important to take from this is the reality that one, we're animals, and even we know as well, Rach, that biome, like gut biome, you know, that partners are attracted, you know, the gut biome affects who we're attracted to too. And as we change our gut biome and we change our thoughts and we change all of the things about us, which completely, everything about us has the opportunity to be enhanced and elevated and expanded and updated. And as we do that, that's the natural nature of outgrowing a partner too. So it makes sense to me just naturally. And when I say outgrowing, doesn't mean they're behind or you're ahead or anything like that. I mean, just growing away from, because you're no longer a match. And, you know, we see this with people who do, you know, expansive growth work or esoteric work, and equally people who just shift their focus from maybe consumerism into service work, or it is natural to grow away from your partner. So regardless, even different phases of your life, but it makes sense to me if you drop into different aspects of your femininity, that different parts of your relationship could 100% shift. I think I want to explore that some more with you. Maybe we can unpack that in a future talk, because that's big.
It is big. It is.
What about the woman who's listening going, okay, well, maybe I just attracted the wrong man. We'll just push pause on that story for a second.
To consider.
You're fine.
Yeah, it's just all, but this is it. It's just all new research that's unfolding. And as you start to look at how has the pill, you know, impacted us as women, you know, for me, I was on the pill when I was younger, and I am very blessed because I'm the first generation out of my whole family to be able to go to uni. And I really do put that down into, it's allowed me a lot of freedom in my life and a lot of choice in my life as well. So I come from a grateful place of saying, you know, I'm very grateful for the pill. But then standing in this other, you know, looking inwards to look at the different science and the research, I'm now looking at from a point of, well, hold on a second, this isn't exactly benefiting any woman, because it's just shutting down our actual power of the menstrual cycle, because of the research that's coming out about the side effects of being on the pill.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, I actually haven't done the level of research that you have into, you know, how thorough the advocacy and the testing was for the contraceptive pill. But what I definitely can say from research I've been doing recently is that the FDA is not the organization that I think many of us think it is. It is not placed there with a objective agenda. It is placed there complete. And if you don't, you know, some people are uncomfortable hearing this, but do your own due diligence. Don't take my word for it. Look at who owns the FDA. Look at what they approve as healthy and reasonable. Look what other companies the owners of the FDA also own, and realize that there are very compromised authorities and governing bodies that are profiteering from approving certain things. And that's just a hard reality that we as humans in our sovereign right have to start understanding and accepting. And I wish I had known that when I was younger, because I definitely would have had less blind faith in even things like heart association ticks, FDA approvals. They really mean jack shit. And I mean that, I know I sound like one of these people that's like on a pedestal about it or a soapbox about it, but I would love everyone to wake up to that, because just because it's got association or federation or foundation, they're actually corporations owned by other corporations, and it's just a massive rort. And it doesn't surprise me that they have found some kind of, you know, medication to approve that actually steals power from the women. I mean, you know, it sounds like a full conspiracy theory, but I wouldn't doubt it.
Well, you know, it sort of benefited men, you know, because if they have, you know, a woman that is on the contraceptive pill, it's very unlikely that they'll get pregnant, and therefore they can be a little bit more promiscuous. You know, you can look at it from all angles, really. Yeah,
that's right. And they don't have to be responsible then for their ejaculatory expression in the world, you know?
Yeah, because you know, looking right back hundreds of years ago before it, if you're in a relationship, you're more inclined to have that fundamental sticking with each other, because you're going to reproduce, like it or not. If you have intercourse, you're more likely to have an offspring, so you're more inclined to find a soulmate and stick to it. But that is a whole nother ball game. But I think bringing up the FDA and bringing up, you know, it's so cheap to go and get the pill, and when you do go see a doctor, they're not going to teach you about ovulation, about empowering you with using natural fertility methods. In their toolbox, they have the pill. So, and it's easy for them just to hand it out. And we're so easy to go, okay, if our doctor says
convenient, we just go for convenience. And I certainly did. And I, you know, I really do want to just say that even though I'm a big advocate now for natural methods, I absolutely was not. And I was the person that would even skip having the period because, well, that's just inconvenient. So I'd just go straight, I'd skip the sugar pills, you know, and go straight through. So can we talk about 1 second before we go into alternatives, but what I now have learned, and I would love you to share with the listeners, the importance of the bleed. Because there's a lot of people that are avoiding the bleed. They don't want the bleed. It's inconvenient. It's messy. It means I can't have sex, or whatever it means. But the actual physiological importance of the bleed.
I think it's even the physiological importance of having ovulation. When you ovulate, you have a tissue called the corpus luteum left over in the body. This is the most incredible tissue in a human body. Not even men have this. And it actually releases the progesterone. And like I was saying before, progesterone is so fundamental to your nervous system. It holds everything in, so you get that beautiful glow, like stronger hair, stronger nails. But it's that progesterone that helps a woman to, I guess, become more proactive with stress, but also changes her brainwaves as well. And it's what connects us all. And then when you bleed, as women, we used to go and bleed together. I don't know if you've ever lived with a lot of women, and you'd always sync up. So just the fact that women used to go into these things called red tents, or they used to tap out and not do any housework and all sort of bleed, that they would have this time to stop doing housework, stop doing chores, and bleed together. But they were passing on some incredible information, things like midwifery, things about you know, our emotions, our spiritual connection with each other, and they pass this down during the bleed. And that's a very sacred time to be connected with not just yourself, but with other women.
Yeah, and actually in the red tents too, particularly in tribes, that's when a lot of the women would come together to problem solve the conflicts within the communities.
Yeah.
So the women used to, the wisdom of the womb is where we get that word from, right? Because they used to sit and be with Mother Nature and Earth and bleed it directly into the earth, as you said, and really then they would come out of the red tent with the solutions for the tribe. And it was really only through the introduction of formal religion, which then prohibited women from entering churches, that stopped the reverence of women for their wisdom and their innate ability to connect intuitively with the source of knowledge that is greater than any one of us and rather is the collective. So, I mean, look, let's not even go down that train, because you know I'll be a freight train out of control if I get onto my women's issues stuff. But also physiologically, releasing blood then forces our body to rejuvenate new blood. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the blood is a lot of stem cells. They're actually doing a lot of research with period blood, and they're growing. It's an organ. They're doing the research firstly on pigs, on human blood into pigs, but they're renewing new peptides because the blood has got stem cells, like growth stem cells, and it's so powerful, really, really powerful. That's going on. So we're realizing that this whole the actual constituents in the blood it's definitely very beneficial to start doing a little bit more research into what it actually is.
So now, Rach, I know that you have an amazing program called the Natural Contraceptive Method, and we're gonna link to that for people who are like, okay, well, I'm open to exploring it. But what about the woman who's like, all right, I know you guys are saying it's all wonderful, but I really quite like that I'm steady the whole way through the month and that I'm not going to get pregnant. So let's address the pregnant thing. How do we not get pregnant if we're not on the pill? I mean, there's obviously condoms, but if someone's like, I don't want to use condoms with my partner.
I think that you need to listen to your body. And this is all about taking responsibility and not relying on, you know, the pill or the governments to look after us. We got to go within, and that does mean a little bit of work. It means a little bit of tuning into your body, tracking your vaginal secretion when you're ovulating, tracking your temperature, because as soon as progesterone peaks, when you ovulate, your temperature goes up. So it's going to come, you're going to have to put in the effort. When I'm around, I track my app, I use Natural Contraception Method. When I'm fertile, around those fertile days, we just don't have sex. But when I'm, you know, away.
Just to pause, Rach, because I agree with you. I mean, it was only when I went to fall pregnant that I found the irony that it's actually quite hard to fall pregnant. There's only literally, I was like, what? You can only, I mean, it sounds crazy now, but when we're young, we're like, if a penis comes near you and you're not on the pill without a condom, you're going to fall pregnant. And then later you're like, pardon? There's like how many days of the month that I can fall pregnant if I'm lucky? I remember just being like, this is the biggest rort of the whole world, you know? So first of all, there's apps, isn't there? People can actually use apps on their phone, pop in their period when they get their first bleed, and then keep doing that for a few months, and they'll start to notice natural rhythms and natural cycles. And then temperature is how we track it when we want to fall pregnant. So you're saying you'll have a spike. And when you say for those days around that, so roughly, and obviously we are saying you need to track, because some people could be 28 days, some people could be 31-day cycle. But roughly how many days in the middle of a cycle would people need to abstain from intercourse?
About 10 days out of the 30 days. Your sperm lasts for 5 days in the body. So, and you ovulate obviously ovulate once. The egg lasts for 3 days. So that day of ovulation, I always put 5 days post-ovulation and then 5 days pre-ovulation. That's a whole window I'm cutting out. But there's going to be no sperm or no egg to fertilize, basically. And success rate is up around 98%. And if you look at that compared to the progestin pill, the mini pill's got 95% success rate if used correctly. So it's more successful than the mini pill when using this tracking. So it's awesome.
People could have intercourse in that period of time, but they would just need to use a condom, or it doesn't mean you can't be intimate with your partner. It just means you don't want to do it in an unprotected way.
Yes, yep. So there's many things, like obviously condoms is the first choice, but you can also go back old school to a diaphragm, where a woman inserts the diaphragm, so it sort of blocks. And they're the two safe methods as well.
So I would love you to talk, because I was recently having a chat with someone who said to me, you know, that they're on a dating app and doing all the things and having intercourse with somebody, and I said, oh, you know, do you talk to them? You know, I don't know how it came to be, but they shared that they weren't using a condom and they're not on the pill. And I said, well, I have two questions. One is, are you tracking your cycle? And two, what about STDs? Because that is also a concern, right? For me, definitely it would be. You know, I'm someone who hasn't in her lifetime had very many sexual partners, and my sexual health is such a high priority for me. There is no way I would ever compromise that. But everybody's free to make their own choices. I understand that. But my question, and then her response was, oh no, well, he pulled out. And I was like, nah. I mean, I know even from high school, pre-cum, you know, like, I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. And she was having this intercourse around her ovulation period. So we can't rely on pulling out. Can we, Rach, can we just clear this up? And then I will direct her to this podcast, because she didn't listen to me.
Yeah, no, 100% you can't. And he can just pre-ejaculate before ejaculating. And I think it's really important for us, you know, I love how you talk about self-sovereignty. Well, we need to take it into our responsibility and our self-sovereignty to say that's not okay, because we can't rely on it. We really can't rely on that. So, and then you're talking also about, you know, the chances of STD and things like that. So this can really help us to bring a higher standard, if not to us, but to the next generation of women, to allow them to sort of see and take back their self-sovereignty and put those higher standards on.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes we're in an era in our humanity where we do have a lot of quick fixes, you know, like the morning after pill, or, you know, and there just tends to be this approach of, oh, well, if I'm irresponsible and I get caught up in the moment and it's all the things, well, I'll just grab that morning after pill. And sometimes it's one of the things I kind of sigh about, because it's just a reminder of how blasé we are about the power of our choices and the consequence of all of our actions. Beyond, yes, you can fix it, but the whole point of it is what is the intentionality around that interaction, which opens a whole another question. So, Rach, coming back to the woman who is like, well, I love the idea of this natural contraceptive. I understand what you're saying. I kind of need to figure out when I'm ovulating, and then 5 days prior and 5 days after, that's when I would abstain or use protection. Now, around ovulation, you said that that's when we would get the kind of clear discharge.
Yeah.
And you said it would be watery. So when it starts to get tacky, like stretchy, where is that in the cycle?
So when you're closest to ovulation, the estrogen makes the vaginal secretion very watery, very liquidy, almost like egg whites.
Yes.
And then it will start to go sticky.
Okay.
And the stickiness of it, vaginal secretions have like antimicrobials, good bacteria. It's really protective stuff. So the more stickier you are, the furthest away from ovulation you are.
Okay, great. So when it's really clear, that's definitely a sign that my body's ready to receive a baby. And if I don't want a baby, now's not the go time. If I want a baby, now's go time. Go.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. And then I wanted to what you just touched on was so valuable around the fact that it is an ecosystem in there. And I do notice a lot of women using, well, what I would call less than ideal lubricants, maybe over cleaning or over sterilizing that area. Like, can you speak to that? Because I know you've had chats with my girls too in the past around this. And I just feel that so much of the education is really missing for people. So one, you know, I know that, you know, and I'm very blunt, I suppose, when I talk about this stuff, because I think there's nothing shameful about the human body, but all parts of us can get really smelly, and the vagina is definitely one of them. And I think it is natural and normal for us as women to want to not have, you know, a smelly vagina, especially if we want to have a man enjoy that space. And yet that sometimes over cleaning, can you talk about that for a minute, and what's an appropriate amount of cleaning?
Yeah, I do remember babysitting the girls, and I remember you got home and Bibi was like, Mum, I'm not washing my vagina because it's self-cleaning.
And I was like, well, yes, and we
really,
vagina.
It took you by surprise.
About the fact that it's not even the reference of the vagina being different to the. In fact, I had the amazing Belinda on who had the Yoni Elixir recently, and most girls have a good understanding of the difference between the vaginal, wall versus what we call the vagina. So there's parts of it that we definitely want to clean, and other parts that we will allow it to do its thing. So, what should women be washing, and what should they be letting self-clean?
I spoke to a gynecologist about, how much is overwashing, what should I be recommending my patients, and she doesn't recommend to wash at all down below. If you do feel like it is a little bit sticky or smelly, it's a good indication to go get a swab and get that checked out, because it should never smell, like the prime one is, like a fishy smell.
Yep.
But that's a really good indicator that there is a bacterial overgrowth.
Okay.
So we sort of do want to almost keep it that we are, making sure that whatever bacteria is there to allow it to grow. If there is overgrowth, obviously we'll go.
And when you say not washing or cleaning, we're still running water through that area. We're just not taking soap to that area.
And I think soap's a big one, because it strips the oils, it strips that really good quality mucus that you want, and it changes the pH. And bacteria grow in particular pHs that soap, washes out. So it changes your pH. So your vaginal bacteria is like, woohoo, I love this environment you've created for me. And they're opportunistic, and they will come in and they will shoo all the good microbes out. So soap is a big no-no, but do know that there is particular soaps that are made with the right pH to use below. But water is the best pH.
Yeah, so we can wash with water, but when we say not washing, we mean not taking soap to that part of your body.
Correct.
And then, Rach, what's your recommendations for lubricant? Obviously, the body will have a natural lubricating, factor, and if in a loving relationship you're having enough foreplay, chances are you won't need lubricant. But we live in modern times, and sometimes people are like, well, let's get this done, And so what would you, if someone wants a lubricant, what would you say is the best for them to use?
There's a lot of good natural brands coming out with natural gel base. Things like aloe vera, I think, is one of the main base that you can use. I've always just been a big fan of coconut oil.
Yes.
Having a jar of coconut oil there, because that's antimicrobial as well. But looking out for those synthetic lubes that are there are the wrong pH. Will interfere with your vaginal vaginal bacteria. So just really avoid that. But you may need to pay an extra $5 extra for the organic, paraben free, but it's worth it. Or just go get some coconut oil. It works fine.
Yeah, or some Yoni Elixir that Belinda said was also, has there was a lot of amazing oils that she's formulated that relax and allow even the vagina to receive and to enhance stimulation. Like, it's really formulated magically. But yeah, I'm a big user of coconut oil too. The one thing I wanted to ask, Rach, is, because I think the beautiful thing about having special oils and special practices is this reverence of your vagina and this reverence of your womb cycle. And I love that this is the direction we're heading in, with this femme power movement. But what about diet? Like, what could we be doing to literally enhance or support the cycle with nutrition?
In regards to your menstrual cycle?
Yeah, is there anything that you have found through, nutrition really enhances potentially the balancing of the hormones or the supporting of a healthy, cycle? I
actually have. I found that there's this old tradition of seed cycling, so eating different seeds around your cycle. So the first, from summer to your ovulation, you increase your sesame seeds and I think it's your flax seeds.
Wow.
And they can help support the estrogen and the removal of estrogen when it dumps out. And that luteal phase, you increase your pumpkin seeds and your sunflower seeds. And that zinc.
So sesame and flax seed up to ovulation. Sesame and flax, and then after ovulation, pumpkin and
sunflower seeds.
Sunflower, that's fascinating.
And that can help with the progesterone, and the zinc helps regulate your blood sugar levels, and it can reduce your PMS, but it's meant to help with that progesterone.
That's awesome.
I find when women start to use and apply that to their menstrual cycle, their periods start to regulate. They don't get heavy clotty periods, and their mood stabilizes.
Well, you know what I'm thinking, Rach, is people could just make two kinds of jars, one with the first mix and one with the second, and that could be something they could just sprinkle on their salad, depending on which aspect, half of the cycle they're in. I love that. That's a really cool idea. That's a really great tip for everyone. All right. So what are the other concerns that people have about coming off the pill or going into natural? Is it weight gain?
It's actually acne.
Perfect.
You would think about, it's pregnancy, but that's the last of their concerns. For women coming off the pill, and I've seen all ages from 25 to 45 that are like, Rach, I want to get off the pill. They've either done it before and they've completely broken out on acne, or they've done it and they just didn't feel right. They had to get back on the pill because there's no guidance. It's so easy just for doctors to give out the pill. But when a woman comes back and goes, all right, doc, how do I get off this without getting side effects? Because all drugs have side effects when you come off of them, particularly if you've been on them for a while. And it's post-pill side effects, which is mood swings, heavy clotted periods, no periods, acne is one of the biggest ones. And then obviously pregnancy. But a lot of women come to see me because they've broken out in acne. And the whole idea of it is to prepare your body before you come off. And you can do that through gut health and supporting your liver to clear out them. So when you finally do transition off, your hormones, those natural hormones, can actually surge and start to bind to fresh receptors. So you can create a good balance and good change for healthy periods.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was something I was going to just touch on, that for people not to forget the gut biome literally touches everything, and particularly hormones, and particularly inside the endocrine system and that cycle. So if people were thinking about coming off the pill, as you've suggested, one, they should definitely reach out to you and use your system, but you would actually recommend they go through a phase of gut biome resetting, of which you've got amazing protocols inside of our Fast Fix formula for that too. Like you share so much wisdom there. But so if they were to go and biome, a cleanse, and then do essentially a cleansing to get all of that toxicity out of their system, then it doesn't have to come out of their skin, is what I'm hearing you say. Because obviously when we come off and the body's going through a state of flux, the skin is literally the quickest and easiest way for us to get rid of things, which is why if your skin is angry, listen to it. It was years of having hives, and I wish I'd had someone much wiser directing me, and I would have saved myself a lot of pain and incorrect use of medication if I had have listened to the inflammation that my body was trying to tell me was present. Rach, one last thing I just wanted to say around that is, what was it? It was to do with, you just mentioned before, people coming off and the skin. It's just dropped out of my brain.
The side effects?
Oh, no. Yes. It was actually, I love that you said, that, it takes a while. There is actually a period of time. So just to preemptively get people prepared for that, you said there's clotting and there's mood swings and all the things as we transition, and obviously doing what you said with the gut biome and, the liver cleansing would definitely help. But how long would you suggest someone, well, I mean, if they're coming off, it's really a matter of committing to it, right? Yeah. And committing to it and then getting your system set up. But so they can know that it's normal to not feel normal for a while. Are we talking it's a month, it's 6 months, it's 18 months? Like, how long does that state generally last, knowing that everyone's individual?
With hormones, a minimum of 3 months, always minimum, and up to 12 months. Wow. It depends on how long you've been on the pill. It depends on when you first start your period as a, say, 13-year-old girl, the hormones from your brain connect to the ovaries, and they go, hey, we're gonna, we're a woman now, let's start to release an egg. Well, it's a dirt road at the beginning. It's sort of hit and miss. That's why we sort of get a little bit of acne, a little bit too much, bleeding, or it's never nice when you first begin. It takes 3 years for that dirt track to become a full functioning highway. So it really depends on when they first got their period to when did they first start on hormonal birth control. But then it also just depends on stress plays a huge role, whether they get their period back and rebalance their hormones, because your brain, when you're stressed, you're either going, am I safe to have kids? No, I'm friggin' overworked. Then you secrete cortisol. But if you're like, yeah, I'm safe, I'm happy, everything is all well and good, then your hormones are more focused on rebalancing and having a good, healthy period. So it's a whole factor. It's one of those, how long, long as a piece of string. So that's why it is really important to work with someone to look at you holistically, to see what's
and you and I say this all the time, and when we did our chat together around stress, we were saying the same thing, is definitely invest in yourself. Go and get the guidance. You don't have to go through this alone. Having someone who is an expert in the space like Rachael can hold your hand through really tough times and go, that's normal. Sometimes just knowing something's normal, even if it's shitty, really does help, because it's like, oh, okay, good. That's actually a good sign that this is happening. And with this learning, you would think it's intuitive. I know when I went through childbirth and there's lots of things that we think as a woman we should just know how to do, but because we haven't been raised in the village in the old methodologies, because we didn't have the wise women in the tribe teaching us and showing us and hearing them talk about it, we really are kind of like being robotized, new word, into a different format of woman. And a lot of these natural rhythms, they're going to sound like a foreign language to our body. So I think it comes back to that thing we keep saying, which is be kind to yourself, be curious about it, lean into it, and go and get help from a professional like Rach.
100%, yeah.
Is there anything else, Rach, that you would love people to know? Or do you feel we've given them a pretty good summary of, one, the benefits of the cycle so they know how to work with it? I love those conversations about summer, autumn, winter, spring. I do. And then understanding that there are alternatives beyond contraceptive. And what I love is that we've really lift the lid on that conversation, just so they don't feel disempowered when they go to the doctor, and they can kind of go, no, that's where I want to go. And I think my preference would be they work with a natural, holistic, wellness practitioner in this space, because that's what you're really asking your body to do, isn't it? Drop into its natural wisdom.
Yes, and it's not all of this information that I share with summer, autumn, winter, spring. It's not new news. Like, you already innately know it because it's inside of you. I'm just helping you remember that. And there's a huge movement happening, and this gives me goosebumps because, my generation has always had the pill, but then we can start to teach the next generation how to enhance their and use their cycle to enhance their life. So I feel like jump on the bandwagon. There's a lot of information happening now, and when you look at everybody starting to realize we are one, there's no race, we're not different from each other. And I think this is where women can really step in and go, we all bleed together, no matter who we are. We're all women. If we're black or white, we all have the menstrual cycle. We all have this sacred power within us. And I think it's a huge movement, bigger than we can ever see now. But if we start to really get within it and then start to embrace this movement, and it starts with us. It really truly starts with using our menstrual cycle to enhance our life. I think that's really something passionate that I want to share with women.
Yeah, and you are, and you're so magical at it, and such a wealth of knowledge in that space. So we'll link to everything Rach does, and you definitely need to reach out to her, whether you're young and just coming into menstruation and feeling like, I don't know what this is about, but it's feeling scary, or if you're, well decades into it and it's like, wow, maybe there's a different way. And one of the things that as a life coach and a transformational coach that I love to remind people of is, just because we've done something how we've done it, and we've kind of felt that was right, when we change our mind, it doesn't make what we did before wrong or any way lessen our intellect or our worth or our decision making in the past, because in any moment, as we know, grow and evolve, we get that wonderful superpower of choice again and again and again. So the biggest mistake I feel that we can make is be closed to growth because we don't want to prove ourselves wrong. In fact, if we could open to being wrong in almost every area of our lives, we'll transform it, because we'll open to more and more opportunities. So just putting that out there for anyone who's like, well, I've been on the pill for 20 years and it's working for me. Yes, and what else could be available for you? Yeah. Rachael, as always, my love, thank you. I could chat to you forever about all the things. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. You're just, what I love most about you is you know so much, and yet you are not you're not an aggressive projector of you should do this. You really do hold an open, very calm, loving space for your clients, and you know what to do, and you can, but you're giving them the choice to discern and choose for themselves, which is one of the reasons I'm such an advocate for you, because we can lead a horse to water, but that horse must decide to drink. And yeah, empower yourself by reaching out to amazing leaders like Rachael. Thank you for joining me today, Beauty.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to speak my truth and give me a platform where I can share this with your viewers. And yeah, it's been a pleasure, Em.
Yeah, I love you tons, and I hope to see you soon. Everybody listening, remember, if anything we resonated, landed, then screenshot, tag Thrive Natural Therapies and me. I am Marina Perry on Instagram. Send us a DM, give us a review. All of the things help, because really what it does is it helps more people access this information so that they too have more choices. And it would just mean the world to Rachael and I. Okay. All right, everybody, big loves, and we'll see you next week for our next episode. Mwah.